fourth session of AI Spark, and today we are gonna briefly learn about neural networks. This is type of an architecture that is widely used in every type of AI we see today. And on the content, we are going to learn about first uh, from brain to computer, where this what is the influence of this neural network comes from, and then the power of networks and how these neural networks learn. And let's go briefly uh, on about different neural networks we use for different jobs. And first of all, let's learn about from brain to computer. Neural networks. Neurons are the brain cells in our uh, the cells in our brain, right? So the artificial neurons are pretty much similar to the biological neurons. Here on the left side, we have the structure of a biological neuron. It has dendrites, then axon. Dendrites take in information, then process in nucleus and around here, and then it put the output through the axon. And then when we go to the computer, the artificial neurons has similar structure, like it has inputs, then it do some calculation, then it puts the output. So that's the phrase neuron comes in neural networks. And let's go through a simple example like weather prediction. Say we have three input parameters like wind speed, humidity, temperature, and each of uh, uh, these inputs have weights assigned to them. This weight is between 0 and 1, and it these input values, I mean x1, x2, x3 are multiplied with their respective weights, and then finally a bias value is added. This bias is added to so that the uh, output doesn't always go through the origin. I mean, it's pretty mathematical stuff. You don't have to worry about that. I'm just saying to to give a bit more depth to this session. All you have to remember is there are inputs with their weights, and there's a bias. Then there's this Z means the multiplication of weights and their respective inputs. Then finally the adding of the bias. So that part is pretty much like the linear regression we did a few weeks ago, if you remember. Uh, in there, we also do multiplication and then finally an addition. Then this F means the activation function. This is the something new to artificial and neurons. This activation function is pretty much like what decide whether the neuron puts an output or it just stays inactive in a sense. So that's the parts of a neuron. And then the power of networks. In our previous example, we had one neuron. We all it's a pretty good model, but all it can do is put a single output like weather prediction, right? So that's the problem with one neuron. One neuron always provide one simple decision. So suppose if we want to classify an image or generate a text, right? In these sort of scenarios, we have to connect many neurons in layers to get a more complex or more sophisticated output. So this is an example of a neural network, right? It's a connected neurons in a network. A neural network has an input layer, which is where we give the input values, and these blue ones are called hidden layers because uh, they are in between the input and the output layer. These values we don't see, or we don't put into the network, right? Because that is why they are called hidden layers. And so that's the very basic of a neural network. And okay, so let's go to another example, handwriting recognition. Here we have an uh, example from a well-known dataset called extended MNIST dataset. So in the first layer, we input the input values of each pixel by pixel, and then the first layer detects the edges and lines. I mean, simple characteristic of an image. Then the second layer combines these edges into shapes. I mean, it does something more compared to the first layer. Then the third layer uh, do something further, goes some further, and it recognizes the letters from other shapes, right? Then the result is output at the last layer, which is the output layer. It outputs this, identifies this letter as the letter A. So that's basically an example of how it does these magical things like handwriting recognition. And so now let's see how we've seen how it output the what goes in every layer and how it output the final output. Now let's learn how it learn to identify these images or text or whatever. As I said, there are weights associated with each input, and uh, input to another layer also had weights assigned to it, not just in the first layer. And each neuron has a bias value, right? It when we start the training, it start with random weights, and it with random weights we can guess the outputs are going to be random as well. So it takes a guess which is going to be which is probably very wrong with the answer correct answer. So it then compares the correct answer. By comparing it, sees this answer, it took the answer it predicted was wrong, and then it adjusts these weights W1, W2, and weights and these biases B1, B2 to reduce this error between the correct answer and the predicted answer, and then it repeat this process over and over until it gets an less erroneous values, or I mean optimal answers for their predictions. So that's basically how networks learn, right? It's pretty much like the other basic stuff we talked about in supervised learning session. It goes through a training process and it sees there's error between the predicted values and the correct values. It adjusts these values, weights, and other parameters to reduce the error. So that's how networks learn. And then we come to different networks or different jobs. Um, if you remember, I mentioned like we use neural networks for image recognition, text generation, and all lot of things. And there are some specialized neural networks for these specialized works. For an example, we use something called convolutional neural networks, or CNN, uh, for image related stuff like image recognition, video analysis, and things like that. So they are used in image classification, medical imaging, things related to images. And then we have something called recurrent neural network, or RNN. These are best at dealing with sequential data, something like language. I mean, language is in a sense like the words are coming in a sequence, or other sequential data like time series data. So these are used in natural language processing, translation, and things like related to natural language processing, or time series prediction, like stock market prediction or something like that. Then we have something called transformers. These are the type. These neural networks are used in something I think we all know what uh, we, transformers are used in. It's the transformer. The T in transformer is also in ChatGPT. That's the T in ChatGPT stands for transformer. GPT means generative pre-trained transformers. So these are best at understanding context in or text or images or whatever we provide in as an input. So we primarily use these for like chatbots and code generation, or we can use these for other stuff as well with the improved versions. So that's it. That's like the very basics of neural networks. I didn't want to go into like technical stuff, mathematical stuff, because when I talked with a few of the guys, got the impression that going into mathematical stuff in a introductory session is like not many of us are gonna get it. So if you are interested in uh, going in deeper, I think there are a lot of resources online. So that's the end of the knowledge sharing part of the session.